You know, when I first discovered The Critical Drinker, it felt like I found a rare gem in the vast sea of online film critics. Because unlike many reviewers who seem to overly cautiously or overly politically motivate themselves through the way they talk about things, Critical Drinker at first offered a refreshing blend of blunt humor, honesty, and a no-nonsense attitude. His whiskey-soaked persona and the gruff Scottish voice seemingly set him apart from most you see in the crowd. At the time when blockbuster franchises were dominating the box office but not dominating the box office scores, he offered a necessary counterbalance. The period between 2017 and 2019 was a turbulent time for most fandoms. Major franchises like Star Wars and Marvel were no longer just entertainment, they had become cultural backgrounds. And fans were divided over creative choices, representation, and political messaging. The internet was swash with, heated debates, and many felt alienated by those who perceived to be forced agendas or lazy storytelling. It was in that context that the Critical Drinker's content found a ready audience. People hungry for candid and unapologetic takes. What makes the Critical Drinker partially compelling was not only his opinions but his delivery. The drunken cynic character who was more than a gimmick. It was an identity that gave him to his reviews a distinct voice. The mix of sarcasm, dry wit, and a seemingly lack of concern for political correctness was what made his videos so appealing to those who, at the time, just wanted no more sugarcoating, no more pandering. This style even made his harshest critiques in his most famous videos, such as The Last Jedi, where his take on the franchise kind of dying right then and there struck a chord. This wasn't just a review, it was a manifesto for a segment of fans that were disillusioned with the direction of the franchise. He wasn't afraid to call out the failures so boldly and humorously, which led him to gain quite viral traction. Soon after, the critiques of the Marvel films and popular TV shows followed post-2020, each combining its own signature tone and pointed cultural observation. I found myself returning to this channel frequently. These were comfort on his straightforward approach, a contrast to overly analytical and politically charged commentary you see elsewhere. His videos became part of my daily routine in terms of shaping how I thought about storytelling, franchise culture, and movies that were coming out. His critiques felt personal and insightful, a voice that resonated with frustrations that I had had but not able to fully articulate at the time. However, as time went on, I noticed a shift that troubled me. The shift that his early critiques gave way more repetitious, sometimes superficial styles. Videos on him, such as Sinners and Thunderbolts recently, have lacked the depth that I've come to expect. Instead of dissecting into the narrative flaws or thematic inconsistencies, the commentary felt more reduced to catchphrases and ideological shorthand. The nuanced perspective I once admired seemed to be replaced by caricature. This stagnation was compounded by the increasing rigid and ideological tone. The persona that had felt fresh and honest for so long now felt trapped, recycling the same points with less insight and less flexibility. It felt as though the Critical Drinker was no longer evolving into the conversation around media, but instead doubling down on a fixed identity that limited growth and complexity. Watching this evolution was frustrating, not just because I missed the insightful critic I once followed, but became to notice a more symptomatic problem in the commentary culture community of YouTube. Many creators fall into this trap of maintaining a consistent brand at the expense of intellectual growth. The risk of becoming predictable and even stale, where persona overshadows genuine critique. Simultaneously, the rise of other content creators in the community space of commentary shape have to show how certain voices and approaches which can be keep to the humor and vibrantness of the conversation as it keeps evolving. These creators blend humor, sincerity, intellectual rigor, and adaptability, qualities that once were held by the Critical Drinker, qualities that have allowed these ones to become more relevant and impactful. Their success made me reflect on what the Critical Drinker could be and whether he could break free from his own limitations. And looking back from my journey from a fan to a critical observer of not only the Critical Drinker, but commentary channels as a whole, while other creators like him have managed to maintain a sense of relevancy, others are slowly but surely dying out. In the next few parts of this video, I'm going to bring into not only my rise and fall of falling with the Critical Drinker, but some people I would call the Avengers of my YouTube feed, people who I regularly and consistently tune in every time they upload. But let's get into it. So in the evolving landscape of the YouTube commentary space, as I said, I have what I call the Avengers, being that these are 6 growing into 7 now YouTubers that I would say I prominently always want to watch on any given day, or even watch some of their old content depending on the necessary need of the time. And these people are Nux Taku, ShoeOnHead, Abba and Preach, Sydney Watson, Destiny, and Demion, and those were the original core six of the group, and recently I've become more of an Asmongold fan. Their rise to prominence in viral moments has revealed much into what effective commentary looks like today. Starting with Nux Taku, I've been a fan of him for 6-7 years, even before he really stepped into the commentary space. He primarily was an anime YouTuber and tried to blend his humor and reaction commentary, but his ability to tap into niche fandoms while injecting high, chaotic, comedic energy set him apart from others. One of his most viral breakout moments is when he was doing JoJo's Bizarre Adventure and Dragon Ball content, when he centered around flexes and anime, along with power fantasy moments, if not what is OP done right.
Identity, and with JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, it's no exception. In fact, it's the rule. Whether you like JoJo's or not, the fans are freaking everywhere. And whether you've seen it or not, you know the JoJo memes. You know Dio's walk. You know the English. Oh my God! You know the whether you're part of the fandom or not, that shiz is everywhere, and it's beautiful. Now,
enthusiasm and sharp wit won over many of casual viewers over time, and now recently he's gone into more of the quote political commentary space, but more in the idea of an average Joe Schmo guy on the internet. Someone like me who has spent many a time in Twitter, Tumblr, etc. spaces, and understands both how internet brain rot has become and what it is now. Then you look at someone like ShoeOnHead, who began her YouTube videos long before I even really looked at the platform, almost 10 years, debunking anti-feminist rhetoric and engaging with internet culture through humor and satire. Over the years, her content has evolved into, of course, political commentary and social critique, and solely personal vlogs. One of her most viral videos is that if you're offended by this, you're a snowflake, which embodies her empathetic approach, or lack thereof, when it calls the absurdity of certain ways we try to do sugarcoating. There's more clear-cut honesty and biting sarcasm. Her ability to tackle controversial topics like the male loneliness epidemic and Are Women Okay, combined with her humor and nuance that helped raise her from typical internet drama to a dedicated fan community, as she's colloquially known as Kami Mommy. Next are Abba and Preach, a duo who has gained attention by discussing gender dynamics, culture, and social issues through a blend of humor and serious debate. Their videos often dissect the complex topics like masculinity, social justice, racism, balancing entertainment with intellectual engagement, and a viral highlight encapsulate them with their YouTube drama along with the old podcast known as Fresh and Fit, when there is a back and forth for both the Red Pill movement, but along with the idea of how do you really fix this culture/gender war. And on top of that all, their rise shows a very organic take on how to discuss any given topic by being able to have a true honest discussion. They have differing opinions themselves. They will go back and forth in real time when watching and reacting to any given news or hot button issue along the ways of the internet. And I like the fact that they're willing to battle themselves back and forth. There is no connective voice. There is no allegiance in that regard. They are both individuals who will gladly give their opinions, but also are able to have adult conversations, which has become more and more lacking as time goes on in the current political space. Then there's Dr. Sydney Watson, someone relatively new to my collection of YouTubers from a couple of years ago, who is a vlogger who rapidly, of course, transitioned into, it's the theme here, political and cultural commentary, bringing in a research-heavy and articulate style to sensitive topics. Her ability to engage with deeper issues like free speech, gender politics, and social trends gained her widespread attraction. One of her most viral video moments was when she was critiquing the culture around cancel culture, which is something that I personally have had an issue with going all the way back to 2018, where it became less about accountability and more about weaponization of mob mentality. The idea that someone we don't like or do something that we don't approve of, which might not necessarily be illegal in most cases. Sometimes if it's just illegal, it's illegal. But sometimes it's more of a popularity contest that gets weaponized, where someone who doesn't fit the mold or fit the agenda gets crucified socially or apolitically or economically. And I just find that to be inherently wrong. Deep platforming is not really a thing, guys, because if they have a big enough platform, they will survive it. And when it comes to Sydney, she's resonated with so many people who are tired of the mob mentality, the mob rule, where anyone who's just not fitting a certain agreed upon opinion, they must be ostracized and vilified. Her methodical and well-researched style contrasts the most reactive other creators, considering that she will come in not only with facts and logic, but she will come in with citations, put them in the descriptions, have people do their own research and not hang on to every single word. Then there's Destiny, known for his debating prowess and build a reputation as a live streamer who will directly engage with anyone when it comes to complex political and social topics in real time. His sharp analytical skills and willingness to debate controversial figures such as Ben Shapiro or Jordan Peterson have created, of course, many viral moments in his career, such as discussions on free speech, social justice, ethics, and gaming culture that showcase an intellectual rigor combined with emotional honesty. He's kind of got a crass mouth, and he's not afraid to just say whatever internet buzzword he wants to use, but he always comes from a place of like, I can outthink you, I can outsmart you, but also I have the receipts to back it up. And whenever he debates people who usually are regular Joe Schmoes, and he asks them to bring any relevant citation, some kind of source, and they can't do it, he just basically crushes them on the merits of it all, which is why it's so much more interesting when you see him engage people who are supposed to be like his intellectual equals, such as, again, Ben Shapiro, Jordan Peterson. I don't believe he's debated Charlie Kirk now that I think about it, but I would love to see that. And his approach just reflects on a commitment to evolving your knowledge. He has changed his mind and changed his stance on many of things with new information, which is how we all should do things. And Devion TV is a Canadian Serbian YouTuber, I believe, who has been a focus on video games, TV shows, and movies, with blending deep analysis with his version of Canadian dry humor and culture insight. And I remember first watching him during The Witcher series on Netflix and noticing that I did not like the way the story was being told. I felt there's deviations in not only the character designs, but the way the pacing of the show was. And that's when I first found him, when breaking down the Witcher story. Like, I had not read the books, but I had played the games, and I was very much invested in seeing the story. And to see both Trish be miscast and Yennefer kind of not measure up to the snuff just drove me a certain type of way, and then looking for other opinions is how I ran into him. He's built a solid following while dissecting popular titles and often challenging the mainstream narratives and their detail critiques. Some of his most popular videos drive into deep dives as far as like Rings of Power and the Batman. Along with things like Cyberpunk 2077, where he is arguing and suggesting that the source material of these novels and movies and games should be adhered to, should be understood, and those who are making them and working with that IP should respect the histrionics of the IP without trying to jam fist a message for political favor. There's no point in telling a great story if you don't focus on telling a great story. And what I mean by that is, Lord of the Rings is one of the most beloved franchises of all time, and instead of just engaging in the world of Lord of the Rings, we brought real-world politics into it. And I'm not saying there can't be politics in media. We all know that's not how that works. But when it can be directly attributed to real-world stuff, as opposed to an analogy, that's where we run into issues. Finally, we have Asmongold, who's recently, within this year, become an actual mainstay on my YouTube. Someone I subscribed to. I used to always see clips of him, but never really understanding until I really kind of dove into hearing what he actually had to say. And I've seen many of out-of-folded and viral clips from especially Destiny. He used to cover Asmongold a lot. But I kind of, as someone who wants to dive into the weeds of something, I wanted to see the true man behind the roach. And he's primarily known as a gaming streamer, but it's become more of a prominent figure in, again, media and politics. This is just the flavor of YouTube nowadays. His authenticity and straightforward communication style resonates strongly with his viewers. I have seen maybe one or two of his live streams in real time, and he is, for 7-8 hours, still really able to keep a conversation going with his chat of usually over 20 to 30,000 people. His viral moments often come from those live streams as well, with game announcements, industry controversies, and social political discussions, where his candid cuts through formative posturing. He never is afraid to just call it how it is, even use what people might call a mental slur. I don't know about that one per se. I feel like if you use certain things that are in the English dictionary that are used for medical terms and legit terms, there's a bar to argue right there. His crossover appeal bridges gaming culture and broader social commentary, highlighting the evolving nature of all internet personalities. While all these people I mentioned kind of dive into the same kind of field, their personality is what makes them above all else. These creators illustrate the diversity and adaptability necessary for meaningful online commentary and what is going to be a crowded space. Each has found their way to connect with their audience through a combination of personality, insight, and willingness to engage in complexity. Their viral moments and ongoing relevance offer a roadmap for evolving criticism in the era of cultural conversations. In contrast, the critical drinker, once dominant style, now feels comparatively static. These Avengers showcase their relative growth that demands a sense of change. It creates vulnerability, a broader range of discourse, qualities that could create everlasting engagement if one were to invest in it. And I feel like the Critical Drinker has stopped investing. One of the things that led me to make this video is when I noticed a weird shift in tone and approach when it came to the movie Sinners, which by all accounts is a fantastic movie and a great movie that normally someone like the Critical Drinker would be celebrating and raving for something that actually is good quality, which is like he's been asking for and clamoring for when it comes to cinema. But weirdly this time around, as he claims he was praised in the movie with his socials, but he decided to put his review on his secondary channel, which shows a clear sign of either hesitation or not wanting to put it on his main channel where most of his engagement is, and thus it kind of raised some eyebrows and questions even among his own community who have been clamoring for his take because they kind of value what he said. Sinners offered a complex moral themes layered with storytelling that made it an ideal subject for someone like the Critical Drinker. However, the Critical Drinker's review felt half-hearted and reluctant in that secondary channel. His tone suggested he was doing it more to fulfill an obligation than genuine analysis, a departure from the incisive, sharp critiques that initially defined his channel. It's the same man who spent, I think, 9 to 10 minutes just gushing over 28 Years Later trailer, which was a phenomenal trailer, don't get me wrong. I watched that trailer 3 or 4 times. The music, the tone, everything, it really makes me want to go see that movie. And this is what I come to expect from him. But the disengagement he had for trying to review Sinners is just held, reducing what could have been a nuanced discussion into a surface level dismissal. It's almost like he didn't want to bring up the concept of a movie involving Ryan Coogler, Michael B. Jordan just doing well because it was, based around, colonial times. I don't know what his hesitation is. He's been so upfront on critiquing every bit of Hollywood, from movies to TV shows, and yet this movie that was actually good in 2025, a breath of fresh air, especially off of Snow White, and he just was apathetic about it. The fact that Sinners reviews appeared to be on the secondary channel rather than his main platform speaks to the largest of volumes, because considering his biggest fan base is going to be on his main channel that has over 2.2 million subscribers to the 800 something he has on his sub channel. And you might not think that's a lot of a difference, but just count the difference between 1 million to 100,000. It's a big difference. And on top of that, it speaks to a lack of confidence either in the film's importance or his ability to give generally meaningful discussion about it. The strategy is also risk signaling to the viewers that the content might not be worth their time, potentially alienating fans from seriously engaging with the movie. In stark contrast, creators like Endymion showcase commitment to in-depth critique on the mainstream when it comes to any topic he discusses. He will break down the receipts. He will break down the sources. He has developers and directors on call to give a critique and a better review because, he's just a regular guy. But like most people on YouTube, he has some semblance of a background in understanding film and studies. For example, again, when it comes to Rings of Power, it maliciously navigated its sprawling narrative, pointing out how both it had narrative strength and shortcomings without resorting to just dismissive catchphrases like the message. It engaged with the lore, the production choices, the fan expectations, fostering a rich conversation rather than just scoring points on a simple like and dislike scale. This nuanced approach engages viewers and thinks to more critical discussions and comments where you actually feel like he's having an engagement with the people. While the Critical Drinker, outside of his particular podcast he does, who has Endymion on it, by the way, we don't really see him talking to other people. And it's also goes to his review of Thunderbolts, which was on his main channel, and followed a predictable pattern, especially when it comes to Marvel movies. He's talked about forced diversity, franchise fatigue, and overlooking the more intricate aspects of the character interactions and story arcs that could be enriched by his commentary. Which you could argue that he does bring up the point that there's a good movie in there somewhere, like he normally does when it comes to trying to not sugarcoat, but sugarcoat. And I think the fact of the matter is that we could see that this is a return to form, but in the positive way. There's part of Marvel that inherently is going to run its course because it's been around for almost 23, 25 years. It's just going to be a natural occurrence, something will eventually go out of style. But the difference being that the Critical Drinker and his recent content has kind of become formulaic cynicism, where once he was critiquing things with humor, insight, and detailed story breakdowns, and now he recycles the same narrative ideas and tropes that had become his own brand. He's becoming a mockery of himself in a way. The begrudging review, the shallowness of his reviews, like, it's all gone. Like, we don't have any real substance. And Deviant, on the other hand, is continuing to grow, adapt, and tackling again video games and TV movie shows, which you could say gives him an edge up on the Drinker. I don't think so, because the Drinker vastly outsizes him in terms of subscribers and had 2 channels. So you could say quality over quantity, and I think that's kind of the issue here. The quality of the smaller YouTuber is better than the quantity of the older YouTuber. And his ability of Endymion to dissect multifaceted narratives, understand fan expectations while avoiding simplistic judgments about just being the message or the left or however you want to critique them. It's a style that reflects intellectual curiosity and respect for the medium itself, which are quite rare in most online discussions. His reluctance to really engage with that kind of discussion point on his own main channel just kind of speaks volumes. And ultimately, the contrast between the two approaches to what I'm saying is being lost in the Critical Drinker. Recent work can remains possible, but path forward, I just don't see it. And we're not even going to get into the fact of his own movie and how that was reviewed. The most ironic thing in this damning chapter of the Critical Drinker's fall is that his own movie, Rogue Elements, which he kickstarted and kind of got off the ground very quickly, he's always positioned himself as a defender of traditional storytelling, an advocate of character-driven plots and classic narratives. So when he announced that he's making his own film and crafted the studio system written by himself, and his fans rallied behind him with enthusiasm, open walls to see what could the Critical Drinker actually do with given the proper funding. And when the project finally materialized, the very thing he swore to destroy, he ended up creating a dull, undercooked, and painfully forgettable experience in this movie. Expectations were high, and understandably so. After all, this man has spent the better part of half a decade, if not close to a decade, critiquing the creative failures of Hollywood, their own project expected to exemplify everything that was missing from modern cinema. But instead of delivering a lean, compelling story, the Critical Drinker produced a low-energy film that lacked not only the polish but some originality, and many fans who supported the project came away disappointed, if outright embarrassed. The story was cliched, the characters were flat, and the pacing was lethargic. Even diehard supporters struggled to defend it. The backlash was especially jarring because it revealed a truth that many had ignored, that the ability to critique doesn't automatically translate the ability to create. What Rogue Elements proved is that the Drinker, for all his swagger and takedowns of modern media, is not above falling into the pitfalls of weak writing and shallow storytelling. The very thing he mocked, bad dialogue, uneven tone, derivative characters, and were suddenly all on full display from his own hand. And unlike corporate studios, there's no one else to blame but himself. The fan reaction was swift and cutting. On Reddit threads, YouTube comments, Twitter, otherwise known as X, the discourse of longtime viewers expressed betrayal. They felt they had been sold a bill of goods and got a bad product in the result. But not only that the Critical Drinker wasn't some savior. Now, you could say he never really propped himself up to be some kind of like media messiah, but the idea that someone who spent, again, half a decade critiquing the way Hollywood studios who spend millions upon millions of dollars to create these movies, and given just a small bit of a budget to create his own standalone film, that he's just another guy that talked a big game and couldn't deliver. Criticism came not only from outside his bubble, from within it. Even some of his collaborators and guests on his live stream stepped to the side, taking away from his film's shortcomings directly, creating an awkward silence around those who might have been a celebratory release. This moment shattered the illusion of the untouchable persona. For years, the Critical Drinker benefited from being the voice on the sidelines, never risking anything, always critiquing others. But with this project, he stepped into the field and immediately fumbled the ball. Unlike Hollywood, where failures could often be protected by PR spin or studio budgets, his project lived and died by the support of his audience. When they turned on him, it wasn't just a failed movie, it was a rupture in trust that had fueled his rise. It's also confirmed from one main perspective. The Critical Drinker's understanding of storytelling might be more aesthetic than structurally sound. His critiques often rely on references to proper arcs in the hero's journey, but when tasked with applying principles to himself in the movie, he had the hand of not only being the writer, but a creative director, resulted in what felt like a checklist, not a compelling narrative. The movie lacked emotional states, thematic depth, and visual ambition, not on lines of also being geographically challenged. It wasn't just bad, it was unimaginatively bad. And from someone who called for a return to form, return to creativity, and a return to imagination, and was nothing but a contradiction in himself. The fallout extended beyond the film itself. His comment section, once filled with praise and camaraderie, became increasingly divided. Some fans defended him out of loyalty, blamed the budget or the crew, but others asked the hard question. If the drinker can't make a good movie with complete creative control, what does that say about his years of critique? Was it all talk? These are not questions easily shaken off, and his content since then has only fueled the doubt. As he retreats further and further into formulaic rants and avoiding addressing the failure directly, rather than confronting that criticism head-on, Drinker has chosen silence. It's been months since the movie's been revealed, and we've seen no in-depth post-mortem candid reflection, no lessons learned, no statements made. This omission stands in contrast to creators like Destiny, Asmongold, ShoeOnHead, Abba Preach, who are more than willing to engage with the audience for their failures, spark the dialogue, and even gain respect for showing their vulnerability. They're not afraid to be wrong because they didn't stand on some kind of moral high ground. The drinker's entire persona rests on the concept that he himself understands what makes good storytelling, good writing, and good decision making from a creative team. Trigger's unwillingness to do the same that these people have done from that persona that he has built up shows that there's no more room for reflection, which means no more room for proper nuance. It may have been acceptable when he was an outsider, but now he's a filmmaker. He's got his own film to be critiqued and reviewed and judged, and it did not pass the smell test. While creators like Endymion, Asmongold, Abba Preach, Nux Taku will continue to gain credibility from the community from their honesty, informed analysis, and never acting as the savior. No one props themselves up. I mean, Endymion literally says all the time he's just some dude with a Mac. Nux says he's just, a blue idiot on the internet. Abba and Preach just being like, we're just two guys in Canada. They never once bring themselves above. The Drinker's failed film just underscores the fact that critique without self-awareness can quickly turn into hypocrisy. His inability to live up to his own standards has given his detractors all the ammunition and caused even loyal fans to question their allegiance. In the end, the Colonel Drinker's fall from grace is not due to censorship, woke backlash, or cancel culture. It's due to an accountability gap between the persona he sold and the creator he actually is, who's also a writer, by the way. He has published books. His failure to deliver when it mattered most, combined with his retreat from genuine engagement, has made him not only outdated, but actively disappointing. He doesn't just lose the plot and storytelling, he lost the trust that made his voice matter in the first place. Hope you guys enjoyed this. Be the old weeb. GG's, guys.